Good morning, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us. It is Tuesday, and like my brother always liked to say, it's Tuesday. Tuesday means that's the day that we record our Remembering How It Was podcast. This Tuesday, we're going to do something a little different. Yesterday was Memorial Day, and I wanted to do a special Memorial Day podcast because of the experiences that my brother has had, and because of some of the knowledge that he has, having been in the military. And I'm just going to let him go. I'm going to just kind of turn the floor over to him, and I'm just going to ask questions to kind of just guide us through. But brother Justin, I'm going to turn it over to you. And first of all, just start off by telling us, how was your Memorial Day?
My Memorial Day. Hello, everybody. My Memorial Day was great. We pulled off some stuff. I have a foundation, Just One Foundation, and this year I partnered with VFW Post 2087 here in Greensboro.
Okay,
And
let me
actually,
stop you for a minute. What is the
okay,
Just One Foundation? What do they do? Just go back and.
okay, the Just One Foundation is something that me and some friends got together. I served on the Park and Recreation Commission for some years, and I saw some gaps in reaching some different neighborhoods on the east side of town, and some things we just wanted to make sure that our youth and our older people too. We're not just youth oriented, but we older people oriented. We just try to bring families together, make sure people have a good time. We do engineering camps. We've done aeronautical camp. We've done professional wrestling, wrestling to the hood. We had a community garden, and because of my military, I try to make sure that that's in place as well. But I don't call myself a military organization, but we try to touch people in all walks of life here in Greensboro.
Well, thank you. Okay, so now we know what Just One Foundation is. So now get back on track. I'm sorry I threw you off, but I thought that one might be important if people didn't know what Just One was. So now I'm going to ask you again, how was your Memorial Day yesterday?
It was good. And I said we're partnered with the VFW Post 2087, and just to let people know, the VFW is Veterans of the Foreign Wars, so everybody is commonly known as the VFW. And what we did yesterday, well, Saturday, did our event Saturday, we had two troops of Boy Scouts to come out with some citizens. And this year in Greensboro, the weather was terrible. It was just rainy. Cemetery was rained out. We normally go to a cemetery every year, but this year we did everything inside. And we had the Boy Scouts to do their thing. They came out, laid the wreath in front, and a good friend of mine, Eddie Holmes, is a retired first sergeant of the United States Army, and he is with this group, the Buffalo Soldiers. And what Eddie did for us, Eddie came out and gave us the history of the Buffalo Soldiers, because I knew of the Buffalo Soldiers, and people have heard the name Buffalo Soldier, but Eddie came out in full gear and let the Boy Scouts know what the Buffalo Soldiers, how they became about, how their struggles were in the early days, and he just gave a great lecture. Actually, the ceremony turned into an educational section, and it was good. And after the thing, I was speaking to a lot of people, a lot of old people my age, and actually, they had never heard of the Buffalo Soldiers. Maybe I'm military, I knew about it, but I was surprised that people didn't know. But Eddie came out and he showed up. Anyway, we had a great time
Well,
with that. We did that at
I'm going to
VFW.
stop you again
Go ahead.
because I'm one of those people who have heard the name Buffalo Soldiers, but I don't know. Can you just give us I know
Okay.
he's the expert, but can you
Okay.
just kind of
He's
break
the
it down a
expert,
little
but
bit for us?
what he taught us was the Buffalo Soldiers. They came about in 1866, a year after the Civil War, and how he mentioned that they let the black folks in the military, but they only do certain things, and it came about far as during the Civil War that a slave master, his slaves would fight for him, and
Oh.
they were military, but they wasn't
Oh, so
military. The
he
slave
didn't have to
master was.
go. Wait. Well, let me get this straight. So he,
Okay, okay.
the person who owned the slaves, they didn't have to go fight. They could send their slaves to fight in their place. Is that what I'm understanding?
A representative.
Oh, so
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
yeah, but they wasn't allowed in the army. But there was a guy named, and I'm trying to get what he's talking about. It's a guy named Flippin. His last name is Flippin. He was like the first person to go through uh, the army college because he taught himself to read and everything. He went to the army college, and how he was always isolated during training. He was
Mm,
always isolated during training, but he was a excellent horseman. And so doing that, they put a regiment of black folks together to send them out west during the gold rush times. And the black guys, their job was to fight the Indians, or the trail, make a trail for the wagons to come through,
mm-hmm,
and they would do all the dirty work, and the
mm.
wagons would just follow.
Okay.
So these are the Buffalo Soldiers. And what Eddie told me that I read briefly, that the Buffalo Soldiers got their name because of their tenation, and they was like a buffalo. A lot of people say it's because their hair and stuff like that. And he said the hair was nappy and kinky because they was kind of unkept. But the thing was, the Indians gave him that name because the way they ever kept coming, the buffalo come
They
at
were
you until
just
he just
fierce. They were
till he
fierce.
just goes
Okay.
out. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But anyway,
Right.
that was a great part of our lecture. And after that, the Buffalo Soldiers kept doing things and uh for the country. So they just let them be a military part. And even though uh, it's always been the pay was totally different. Everything
Okay.
was different,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you could hang out. But that's how the Buffalo Star Soldiers come about. But Eddie gave us a
Okay.
great story with that, and it was good. And but I want to say, normally we do our ceremony at a Maplewood Cemetery here in Greensboro. That's the Black Cemetery. It's on the east side of town, and there's a military section there. And we normally do our ceremony there, but the weather was so bad, we just brought it
Mm-hmm.
inside. I mean, a lot of groups went outside and did it, but drainage. Not I made a call at the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
But normally we go out there and we make sure there's a flag on every grave. And
Okay.
something a lady told me some years back. Uh, we were laying flags, and like we have 1,097 graves in Maplewood Cemetery, military
Wow.
graves. And one year we was putting our flags, and we must have came about maybe five or 10 flags short.
Oh.
And I said, okay, that's good enough. Let's go ahead. And this lady, she said, no,
Mm-hmm.
everybody gets a flag. And I was like,
Everybody gets.
man, that touched me. And so we halted the whole ceremony. We went and found 5 flags, 5, 6 flags, whatever we needed.
This.
And then we started ceremony. And after that, that's one of my favorite stories. That statement that she said, I thought my head was in the game, but she put me at that statement, put my
That's.
mind,
Mhm.
soul, and body in the game. And I love that statement that she said.
Everybody gets a flag, and we're not going
Everybody
nowhere
gets,
till if you one
you
flag
know,
short, you short. We not doing
you sure
nothing
that,
till you
yeah,
get a flag for everybody that served
yes,
and died, lost
yes,
their life.
yes.
Okay, I like that story too.
As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, I just talked to a friend right before we came on, and I was told, "Are you going out to lay the wreath?" And I said, "Well, the Boy Scouts not here, so well, you need to go out there and lay that wreath just because." So, Dave, when we finish this podcast, I'm going out to Maplewood Cemetery and put that wreath down. So
Okay, I
that's
hear
coming.
you.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
good, good,
but
good, good.
but but in doing a lot of reading, uh, before I contacted Eddie to come out to speak, I read a couple of books. To get one book was called Bloods, a Vietnam story, and the other book was A War on Two Fronts, which is a World War II book that talked about the 761 tankers. And the 761 tankers, they were a group of black tankers that came in at the end of all they did was racism and train, no matter where they were, racism. But finally, they got called in. And a story about these guys, everybody know about the Tuskegee Airmen, but the
Mhm.
761 tankers were the same way. And I didn't know
I'm
anything
gonna
about
stop you
that.
one more time, brother, if I may,
Okay, yeah,
because
please, please.
um, the Tuskegee Airmen, a lot of us know, but a lot of us don't know. Can you just give us a brief for the young people who might be listening, or elderly people too, who just, again, that's a name we've heard, Tuskegee Airmen. Just tell us a little bit about, just briefly,
Okay,
if you can,
okay,
just,
okay.
just not
Late,
detailed, but just a
okay,
brief sentence about.
late 1943, early 1944. President, I think it's President Roosevelt, his wife had gotten contact with the people at the NAACP. We wanted to have some flyers. We said we could do this. We want to have some black flyers,
Hmm.
and finally they agreed after she pushed them. Eleanor Roosevelt, she pushed them, and they sent them down to Tuskegee. And these guys just worked on their flying craft, worked and worked on their flying craft, and they would not send them to war. They would not send them to Germany. They would not send them because they said people like General Patton has said these guys, they can't fight, they can't do anything. They're lazy, they can't do anything. But in '44, late in '44, they said after these guys been all the training, they said, well, we got to take them because we'd running out of people.
Mm.
And so these black men went over there and they showed up and showed out. I understand
Okay.
their primary mission was to escort the big bombers. And story has it they never lost a bomber. And
Okay.
people start choosing these guys to go out with because these guys are just so excellent. And and the thing is, they always say that if we do something, we got to be better than anybody else to compete. And these guys, they took that wholeheartedly, and they competed well. They got recognized up and down
I'm gonna
the
say,
military chart,
yeah.
but originally nobody wanted them. And that's where the 761 tankers came in. They were the same way. They was just a group of tankers that they trained all over, and all they did was train, train, train. Then all of a sudden, it's like a fire alarm. Now we need you to pull a fire alarm. We need these guys
Yeah.
now.
They had
And
to
they
be
came in.
recognized. You
They had
could
to be
not
recognized.
ignore
They
them
came.
any longer. Hmm.
You could not ignore them, and they did things. And I can't get the right. I know I can't get the date right, but these guys fought so good. They did so many great things in
Hmm.
World War II. But it was the Medal of Honor, something like that. They didn't get recognized for that till like maybe 25, 30 years later.
Oh, okay. All
Because
right.
they just said,
Yeah.
you just
But
don't,
yeah,
you don't
at the
exist.
times, that's how the times were.
Yeah,
It was the times.
yeah,
As we like to reiterate on this channel, on this podcast, is that when we're talking about race, we're not trying to stir nothing up, or
no,
we're not saying it like we're bitter and angry. We're just telling how it was. We're, as the podcast says, we're remembering how it was. And in some
yeah,
cases still
yeah,
is, but how it
yeah,
was.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's what, but yeah, that's how it was. We were just, when we had to overachieve to receive any recognition, and then we received recognition really late, if at all. Okay, so
yeah,
I'm sorry, I just
yeah.
threw that. I felt I had to wanted to throw that in. Okay, so bring
Well,
us
yeah,
back
and
where we were.
that's what. Okay, and so we did our ceremony at the VFW post this weekend, and then yesterday, Monday, I belong to another organization, the Armed Forces Retirees Club,
Okay,
and that has some great history. And the Armed Forces Retirees Club. Now I'm gonna go on some history, and I have to bring Daddy into this history. In 1975, I was a senior in high school, and there was a club formed in 1975 called the Armed Forces Retirees Club. And at the time, only people retired could be in the organization. So he figured 1975 when this thing was formed, you had people World War II, Korea, and
mm-hmm.
Vietnam. And a lot of the brothers I knew, they were those eras. And I know a couple of guys, Mr. Rooks and Mr. Cole. You probably had Daddy and Mama speak about these people.
Yes,
Anyway,
mm-hmm.
Rooks and Cole, they used to come by the house all the time and hang out with Daddy late at night and talking junk and talking crap, whatever they talk.
Mm-hmm.
And but these guys, they were in the Armed Forces Retirees Club because our daddy was in the Army, but he did not retire. So at the time, you had to be retired to get in this club. So I knew of this organization back in '75 at the conception, but I didn't think anything about it. But till I went in the military and I retired, and I mentioned, Mama mentioned something about me to the club. And I went out, found these guys, and I became a member of this club in 1999. But
Okay.
anyway, we would
We're
sit
going to
around this
back up a
club.
little while because I want to know how
Okay,
how and why you decided to join the military and what some of your experiences were. But continue about the club,
okay.
Karina.
The club. It was just at the time I remember. We like to say we had dropped. If you serve 2 years in the military now, we are accepted in the club. But back the time when I joined, and then back in time Daddy heard about the club, you had to be retired. Uh, and what we do, we just kind of keep. We have a building, a place for veterans to come and hang out. We have reps from the DAV, Veterans veteran organizations to come down to help people do their benefit papers and get
Okay.
what they're entitled to. Because a lot of people came back with just jacked up in the head, jacked up physically, or jacked up, bad sinuses for smelling. What they said, like right now, they talk about the burn pits and cancer, and we have people there that's really helps out the veterans in our area.
Good.
And anyway, we had a ceremony down there yesterday. Actually, we did it inside as well because the weather was just so messed up. But I got the guys to go out, and we still because on Memorial Day, the flag drops to half mast, then goes back a full mast at 12 o'clock noon. So we went out, we did the flag thing, saluted the flag, and the fellas cracked at me a little bit because when you tell a group of people, 10 hut, ready to take your hand down. I had to. I'm a long time. I'm 99. I'm retired. So all the terminology kind of left with it. They say, "Man, you don't forget how to do this. Forgot how to do this." But we pulled it off. But what the base of the club is, we go down. We camaraderie. Now, by me being one of the young persons at the club when I became a member, I would get everybody's story about their military experience. And this one guy in the club, he's deceased now. Last name was Denson, and he was telling me about the Battle of the Bulge and how he's a part of that. And I'm thinking that they didn't tell me about black people in the Battle of the Bulge. They didn't tell
Now,
me
what are
that.
you
That's what
saying?
been a
Battle
great
of the. Okay, so I never heard of this.
Battle of the Bulge.
Battle of
The
the
Battle of the Bulge. What that was, it's like
Bulge.
World War II was fighting the Germans, and I hope I get some of this right, but y'all can call in and get my history right. Anyway, it was just cold. Everybody was just in white suits. They fought hand in fist, and they conquered some great stuff. But like I said, I guess by being military, I've heard of it before. But when I heard this black man telling me about it, I'm not thinking that he's lying, but I'm like, man, you wasn't there because history didn't tell me anything about that. But as I start reading, I find out, oh, we was involved in everything. But the
Okay.
books don't say that. The books didn't say that. you know. So I salute to him because a lot of stuff, like I said, I never thought he was lying. I thought he may have been exaggerating. Anyway, but
Okay.
you sit around this lodge. I mean, this lodge with us building we got, and the guys just share stories, just like in the VFW. The guys just share stories, how things were approached and how they handle certain situations. And I guess I have some same stories about how I was approached and how I heard handle certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
to go back to your question, how did I join the military?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's going to sound kind of crazy, but all I can do is tell the truth. Uh, uh, I was going to North Carolina. I was going to North Carolina A&T, and I struggled the whole 2 years I was there. I struggled, and I remember, uh, and I have to tell this story before I discovered the military. And this is probably the first time you hear this one, boy. I quit school, but I didn't tell anybody I quit school. I found a job at this place called Greensboro, and I started this one particular day, and the place was like cutting glass, doing all this weird stuff, and everybody was there was disgruntled. Everybody disgruntled. I was like, man, is this how I'm going to be? Because I'm like 19, 20 years old. Say, is this what my life's going to consist of? They was disgruntled so bad. So the next day I went to work, and the 10 o'clock brake truck come, and everybody went to the brake truck. I went to my car. I said, "Man, I can make my 11 o'clock class. I can do this." I went back to the store.
I'd rather be struggling in school than struggling over here cutting glass.
Yeah, I went back to school. I made it to my 11 o'clock class that day. I left it. We went on break. They went to the truck. I went back to campus, and I
You
was
said, I'm
back.
back.
I'm back.
I tasted life. It didn't taste good. I'm back.
Yeah, yeah, but anyway, I still struggled. Then I started talking to some military recruiters, and one part of the Navy, I met like the Navy is kind of an oddity because I didn't want to go join the Army. I have nothing against the Army, but I didn't want to join the Army. And this one guy, I used to hang out with his sons. His name was Willie Curtis. I used to hang out at his house a whole lot. And he always had a picture of himself, that 5 by 9 traditional military pictures, always sitting on his coffee table, one of the tables in the house. So I grew up watching that picture by hanging out there with my friends. Then our next door neighbor, Joe Williams, he went in the Navy. And so I decided, maybe I'm gonna try the Navy, and I went to Navy, and I didn't look back. And the
Okay.
people say, you did a career, and I'm thinking about, no, I didn't do a career. I just didn't get out. I,
Yeah. How long were you in? How long did you
I
serve?
was I was in the Navy 20 years, and I was also in the National Guard for a year and a half. So
Okay.
and something about that when I went in 1978, and and you got to realize in 1978, Vietnam ended in 1975.
Mm-hmm.
So 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 like the guys who were like the leaders, the guys who had rank, all these guys are the first people I met. These guys had came from Vietnam. These guys are Vietnam veterans. You realize that, in 78 when I went in, if you had just it 10 years of 7 8 years, you were in the Vietnam era. So a lot of
Mm,
guys, I used to listen to these guys talk about some of the stuff that they did in Vietnam, and it's like
mm,
it was all awakening to me because, like I said, I've been in some conflicts, but these guys was actually, running around the ground shooting at each other.
mm.
And I'm gonna tell you the truth, they were my friends, but they wasn't wound too tight.
Well,
And I
from
say
all
that
they had
I say
been
that
through.
I say that because I know this one guy, and this is just a quick story. This one guy, I went to a school at Felt Belvoir, an army base, and this guy was my roommate. And you know how the movies are, you see a Vietnam veteran and they just having an outbreak, and you don't know if they see you don't know if they see you as Vietnamese. You don't know. This guy used to actually be in the bed at night and start telling people to get down, giving orders. I'm
This
on my
is
bed,
hard.
and I'm trying to crawl, crawl between my wall and the bed because I said I don't know what this guy see when he sees me. So I would stay out of his
Yeah.
way until his fit was over. And I didn't
Yeah.
know anything about PTSD. I just said this guy's off the chain. So
Yeah.
so different things like so respect all military
Oh
because they
yeah.
laid it
Yeah.
life in line. They see some stuff that you would never see. Some of the stories I could tell somebody like at the VFW and the AFRC Armed Forces Retirees Club. You can say things and people know what you talk about. I got stories and they got stories. We could tell a person's never been in the military and they'll look at you like you crazy. And say, how could that
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah. Wow.
But
Yeah.
Memorial
The
Day,
the
but
trauma.
Memorial Day to me is Memorial Day is people who lost their life for their country in combat. But for me, I take it a step further for my personal because it's about people like my friend who just had episodes all his life. Those
Mhm.
people, whether they're still with us or not, those people they lost something in the
They made the
military.
ultimate sacrifice,
They made the
even
ultimate
though they're still
sacrifice.
breathing. But
And they have trauma, they have everything else.
yeah.
Like I have some traumas because I've seen some things, but people out there struggling. So when I see Memorial Day and people say there's a difference between Memorial Day and Veteran Day, there is. Veteran Day is to celebrate all veterans. Memorial Day
Mm.
is to separate to celebrate our the guys in combat. But we got I hate well I'm gonna say this term. We sometimes you have some walking dead that been in combat. They make it
Yeah.
back, but they not all the way here. They're not with us.
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
with us.
Yeah.
You know,
So yeah,
but
and
that's
it's just yeah. I
yeah.
just always feel like I feel like anybody that served when you come back, you shouldn't want for anything. I mean, I know there's some people. They're like a lot of the guys here in New York. They can't get it together. So no matter
Yeah,
how much you give them, it doesn't make a difference because they're not able to to to
yeah,
embrace it and use it. But at the
yeah,
same time, I just feel like when you have done that, you shouldn't have to want for anything. You shouldn't
yeah, yeah,
you shouldn't be
yeah.
living
But
in poverty. You
it's
know.
the ultimate sacrifice. It's the
Yeah.
ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah.
And but that's but I meeting those people that I met in my early service days. So like I say, those guys came from war, and I dealt with these people. I was a young guy. These guys like was maybe in their 30s, and I'm in my
Mm-hmm.
20s.
Mm-hmm.
But they have seen things that I couldn't imagine. They've seen the stuff that I read in books. They've done it.
Okay.
But to me, I say Veteran Day is for veterans, but Memorial Day, you got to look at the people who still walk around too. You got
Right.
to give
Whose
them a
lives
shout
are
out.
gone, whose lives have been
You got to give
taken
them a shout
from
out.
them, but they're
Yeah,
alive.
yeah.
Yeah.
There is
Yeah.
a difference, but you still got to think about that fine line.
Yes. Oh,
You know.
yes, brother. Okay. So I don't know where you want to take it
Okay, I want I
now.
want I want to do I want to do one thing though.
Okay.
Something. There's a thing called a missing man table, And what a missing man table is, if you go in normally any chow hall or dining facility in the military, you will see this table sitting in the corner. You will see this table sitting in the corner. And I want to take some time out and tell you about the missing man table. I want
Please
to do
do.
this. Okay. A white tablecloth to symbolize the pure intentions of that service member who respond to the country call to arms. A single rose in a vase represent the blood that service member have shed in sacrifice to ensure the freedom of the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
The red ribbon represents the love of the country that inspired that service member to serve their country. A slice of lemon on a bread plate that represents the bitter faith of the missing. An inverted glass to represent the fact that the missing and falling cannot partake.
Mm.
A lit candle to symbolize the light of hope that lives in the heart to illuminate the missing's way home. An empty chair to represent the absence of the missing and falling.
Oh my.
And that's so every time in the military when you go in that chow hall, you would see that. And like for a lot of years I used to see it. I had no clue because nobody ever explained it to me. So I just
Yeah.
want to make sure people know about the missing man table because that stance
Now,
is always
for
going to
the
stand, always will
people,
stay.
let me just say, interject here. The people that are watching the podcast video, I'm going to insert that photo. Okay. So if you would like to see what he's talking about, I'm going to have that in the YouTube video or wherever the video is. But if you're on the podcast, of course, you won't be able to see it. But if you want to take a look, then I would invite you over to the YouTube uh, video, and that way you'll be able to see exactly what he has described. Okay, go ahead, brother. Sorry to interrupt
Okay,
you.
and people around me here in Greensboro know that Maplewood Cemetery, I'm kind of like the caretaker. The City Parks and Rec does a lot of stuff, but every year I assemble some groups to go out and clean the headstones in the military section.
Mm.
And and years back, I've been on the Parks and Rec Commission, and the cemetery is part of Parks and Rec. We take it from the playground to the grave. Anyway, anyway,
It is what it
I
is.
want to give some ladies. It is what it is. Parks and Rec. It is what it is. But but some ladies, some
Shout
ladies
out to Greensboro
approached me.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah, shout out Greensboro Park. Right. There's some ladies that approached me some years back, and they have people in Maplewood Cemetery, and they was always flustered that they felt the cemetery wasn't getting its due and things. So they approached me to take some action. So through that action, we were able to get some benches down there. We was able to get a memorial wall down there. And I want to give a shout out. I gotta give these ladies a shout out. May Lois Hill, Amanda Bennett, and Carrie Hedden. They stayed on top of me till they were my bullies. They made something happen. They made because that cemetery is a military cemetery, and like I've told people before, people know about Arlington Cemetery, the great military up in D.C. But in the east side of Greensboro, that is our Arlington Cemetery. Those are our black veterans there. So I try to show as much love as to that as I can. And those ladies inspired me. They pushed me. And now it's a lot better than what it was. We got a long ways to go, but it's a lot better than what it was.
Yeah, Greensboro should be very proud of you. I know I am because I remember when you first told me you were going out there to clean the headstones. Like what? They're gonna
Yeah.
clean, and y'all cleaned up every headstone in that. Y'all cleaned up that cemetery, and yeah, brought
We
it back
cleaned
to
up.
life.
We go out because you can't use a pressure washer. So everything has to be done by home. 'Cause those rocks are so old and so
Mm-hmm.
brittle that you can't use a pressure washer. You'll blow the words off them. So
Mm.
everyone has to be cleaned by hand. And the city
Wow,
comes out. They bring us the solution. They bring the water. Now we just take the manpower out there
that's
and we get it.
beautiful.
We get it done. We get it
That's
done. And
beautiful.
the Boy Scouts come out. Uh, some of the Masonic lodges come out. We have some other organizations that come out, this volunteer, because
Mhm.
they want to be there. They want to be a part.
Oh, that sounds
So
well. I'm very proud of all that you have done and that you're doing in Greensboro. And sometimes I think I've said to you, I say Mama would be so proud if she had lived to see just one foundation. She'd be walking around like a peacock. That's my boy. That's my son. That's my son.
Oh,
But
if
so
she known I lost didn't go to school that day, she's
yeah, nah, she wouldn't have owned you then.
no, no,
Yes,
no,
but
no.
so I don't know where else to go. Is there anything else you want to share about anything that does with the military, Greensboro and the military? Anything that you know about our father and the military that I don't know? I know that we both have these books that our father, when he was in the military, he was a writer. And we have books where he wrote poetry. And they were books actually of military guys, right? In order to be in that
Yeah,
book, you had
yeah,
to be
yeah,
in the
yeah,
military. And so
yeah.
I treasure those books. And my father was a very romantic writer, very romantic guy. And so I know that he never talked about World War II. I would always try to ask him questions, and he would never answer any of my questions. And I always assumed, oh my God, he's under some kind of, he can't talk. He's under, I can't, non-disclosure thing. He did used to cook stuff. Some of his meals, he said, I used to cook this. But did he ever tell you that military that I used to cook? And so some of the things he would make, he'd say, I used to make this when I was in the military. And I'm thinking, well, were you a cook? What were you? I don't
No,
know. I don't know. He never talked about
I,
it.
he never talked about it, but I found out this research. Daddy was not in World War II. He was in the army. He got drafted, if I'm not 1946.
Mm-hmm.
So he served some years there. And the thing about our daddy, let's go back to our daddy and our mother. Our father's from South Carolina, outside of Greenville, small town, due west. And he was on a crew that went to Goldsboro, North Carolina. Seymour Johnsonville Air Force Base was not there. It was not there. My father was on a crew to lay the first bricks there, and the Seymour Johnsonville, I think, was finished in 1945, 1946, but he was on the first crew that came down. Now, this is I have a question about. I don't know if him and some buddies joined that crew, or he just went by himself to this crew. But they tried to get crews around the country, and he laid the first bricks at Seymour Johnsonville Air Force Base, and he met this charming woman named Eva Davis, and now her kids have a podcast.
Yeah. Well, on that note, brother, if there's something else you want to add or share about Memorial Day or the
No.
armed services, all respect to all the men and women who have served in any capacity. They calling you, brother.
I know.
They're calling to thank you. On this note, I'm going to sign off then. I'm going to say thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Peace now.
All right.
All right.
Love you.
Bye-bye.